Radhe Radhe. Happy Bhagavad Gita Jayanti on Saturday, 3rd December 2022. So wonderfully auspicious day and occasion for all of us to have been together in today's Bhagavad Gita study session for chapter 6. So now Mummy and I are here for our recap video.
Radhe Radhe everybody, and a very happy Bhagavad Gita Jayanti. Let's start with the recitation of verse number 30 from chapter 6. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati.
So chapter 6 verse 30, the catchphrase is me amazed as a question for everyone we said to ponder and contemplate about. So this is again one way of looking at Sri Krishna reminding us, as he says in the translation, he uses the word lost. And as devotees, God is not lost to us and we are not lost to him. So therefore, it's not a maze in terms of being lost or wandering around. In contrast, we, of course, when we become those highest devotees and we are able to get that union with God, there is that innate inner transcendental bliss of the highest form. So again, we get very delighted, we get really amazed. So again, something to think about, me amazed. With what we hear from Sri Krishna, again, as I said, he says that for those who see Sri Krishna everywhere and see all things in Sri Krishna is never lost, nor are they ever lost to Sri Krishna. We went through in detail the examples Swamiji gives that really help us from a practical standpoint. For instance, somebody is mean to us or says words that are hurtful. There's a tendency to have resentment towards them. But as we mentioned, the sort of namaste concept, the God seated inside me bows to the God seated inside you. Even for that person who might have been hurtful to us, God is seated inside him or her. And so if we recognize it that way, that in fact, God seated in that person perhaps was trying to inspire that person to behave badly with us because it gives us a chance for spiritual progress. And the important element is, but I will not permit that incident to disturb me. That's what Swamiji says. That helps us in our improvement of our consciousness and our spiritual growth. Likewise, the next example is easier to relate to from a family and friend standpoint. We mentioned Swami Vivekananda addressing everybody as, oh, ye children of God. When we think of taking care of anybody or being around with them as a child of God, it gets us to increase our attraction towards God even more. Because although we are performing our worldly duties, aparadharma, we are constantly thinking about God. The mind is absorbed in God. Third example Swamiji gives, and also related to the shloka from the Srimad Bhagavatam by sage Narad. It's from Narad Bhakti Darshan. That one talks about, again, not brooding over things from the past, not lamenting about them. So we often will go back in time, or try to go back to incidents in time and just think about them over and over again. The takeaway is to detach ourselves from them, but again, recognize and appreciate that God set up those incidents or events for our spiritual progress. So all these examples help us really understand, again, as Sri Krishna says, keep your mind always in God, see him everywhere, see everyone in God as well. And then God is not lost to us. We are also protected. We are under his protection and tutelage. We are not lost to Sri Krishna. We'll next go on to chapter 6, verse 31.
Sarvabhutasthhitam yo mam bhajate kattvamasthitaha sarvatha vartamanopi sayogi mai vartate.
So chapter 6, verse 31, the catchphrase here, rhyme, is dwell well. Just as we live well, we now want to also dwell well. And the dwelling, of course, is in Sri Krishna himself. So we see in chapter 6, verse 31, Sri Krishna says that the yogi who is established in union with him, and of course worships him as the supreme soul, residing in all beings, then these devotees dwell only in him, only in Sri Krishna, though they are engaged in all kinds of activities, referring also to material and worldly activities. So Swamiji reminds us, of course, God is all-pervading in the world. We'll see much later, in fact, in chapter 18, towards the end, that that is where Sri Krishna states that he is situated in the hearts of all living beings. For now, Swamiji introduces us to 4 categories of people progressing onwards to perfected yogis. Category 1 being the simple lowest level, where everybody is just a person or a body, and there are distinctions made based on caste, creed, sex, age, etc. The second one, which is what perhaps some of us are able to potentially recognize on these journeys, is to recognize or look at everyone as the soul. We saw this back in chapter 5, verse 18. Sri Krishna explicitly stated with 5 examples that there is the equality of vision we have when we look at a Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. So no distinctions here, because all of them are souls, and of course, tiny fragments of God. But then categories 3 and 4 are the ones here that Sri Krishna is really referring to in terms of perfected yogis. So category 3, like swans, hansas, that is people who are able to see in even higher consciousness. They see God seated as the supreme soul in everyone. So they're not just seeing everybody as a soul, but they're also recognizing that God sits inside each person as the supreme soul. So no distinctions again there, but also there is that clarity of vision, the analogy of the separation a swan can do of milk from water. And the highest category, the most elevated, those are Paramhansas. We've heard about a few of them perhaps in our individual journeys. The example Swamiji gives is of Shukadev, the son of Ved Vyas. Ved Vyas, as we know, he had written the Srimad Bhagavatam. His son Shukadev had narrated most of it. And so through that shloka, we learn here that Shukadev was not at all distracted. There were women bathing in a lake. He was not at all focused on anything around him, because all he perceived, heard, and saw was God. So again, here in chapter 6, verse 31, Sri Krishna is talking about yogis established in union with him and dwelling only in him. He's referring to the categories 3 and 4, the Hansas and the Paramhansas. Let's end off with chapter 6, verse 32.
Atma apam yena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha.
So chapter 6, verse 32, continuing with the word well as the catchphrase part of dwell well from chapter 6, verse 31. Here, chapter 6, verse 32, we say wish well. Simple enough, it's something that a lot of us have hopefully grown up with in terms of instruction from our parents or families, as well as in school, really just being kind and compassionate to everybody around us, whether it is, of course, through good words or deeds, or sometimes for those who are less fortunate, also being just charitable to one and all. And so Swamiji here tells us as an example that if we consider all of our limbs, and if any limb is hurt or damaged, we consider our entire self, our entire body as also hurt or damaged. So we will, of course, wish well for ourselves through wishing well for each of the limbs. Likewise, through this system of recognizing everyone around us as souls, or of course as souls in whom God is seated, then we consider each one with kindness and compassion. We then can take on not just their joys, but also their sorrows, because it's all about sama darshana, equality of vision of perfected yogis. Therefore, in the translation, Sri Krishna says that he regards those people as perfect yogis, who of course have that true equality of vision or equality for all living beings, and they respond to the joys and sorrows of others as if those joys and sorrows were their own. So something important for us to continue implementing in our lives. Mommy, over to you for some Sanskrit terminology and any other items.
Yeah, so from verse number 30, I want you to look at the word pranashyami. Pranashyami means lost. So Krishna is talking about that if we see God everywhere and everything in Him, then God will not be lost to us, nor will be we lost to God. So God will always be with us. Pranashyami. Then from verse number 31, there is very important word which is little hidden. It is ekatvam. Ekatvam means that we have to be established in unity with God. All the time, our mind should be in God. It should be attached with God. We should be thinking of God and nothing else. That is how we will be able to control our mind. Control our mind. How? When we do certain different spiritual practices, because the mind gets disturbed very soon. In this world, we are being hurt or disturbed by other people, or their behaviors are not according to our choice. So mind does get disturbed and we go into negative sentiment. Now, to control all that and to discipline our mind has to be in unity with God all the time. Then we will not get disturbed. And the last word is Atma. Atmaupamyen. Atmaupamyen means similar to oneself. If we start, that means if we start looking at everybody or thinking about them as us only, right? That means we become samdarshanaha. That means we start thinking of everybody as same, that God is sitting in me and God is sitting in that person. Then we will start seeing everybody equally, and that will help us control our mind, and we'll be able to move one level up on the yogi level, whereby the mind is controlled and it is thinking always positive and it is seeing God in everyone, and then God is also not lost to us. With that, I think it helps to explain, Gagan.
Yes, thank you, Mummy. And with that, we come to the end of this recap video. Again, heartiest greetings and wishes on this special occasion of Bhagavad Gita Jayanti. And we hope everybody continues their spiritual progress. We look forward to meeting you all next week, Saturday, 10th December, 2022. Till then, thank you and Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.